basically he's saying Bernie and AOC are shepherds of the Democratic Party to quash any real momentum for an independent or worker aligned movement. And the more he made the case, the more I was like, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
We could go down that path, right? And I think maybe we're at the breaking point where if we don't see some action soon, I will accept this thesis, John.
I think it's right to worry about it. There's a lot of talk on the internet. Everybody kind of knows, with good reason, that the Democratic Party, as it stands today, is like a graveyard for progressive ideas. We're talking about like mainstream progressive ideas, not even like things that would be considered more left about asserting control over the means of production. Um, you have a long way to go to get to that place where much more moderate ideas run into the Democratic Party and they die. So I get it. It is a good thing to worry about, a good thing to critique. At this point, when we really need an opposition party to develop, we need to be pretty vigilant about that getting squandered. Um, I have a couple thoughts on this. I mean, first, it's credit where it's due. Bernie and AOC, to me, are head and shoulders above 90% of the Democrats out there when it comes to working class representation. I don't think we can just, at this point, throw them out for their imperfections, because they are the best starting point that we have. But if the plan is to just stick with the Democrats, yeah, I'm going to be worried.
Mm.
Obviously, look at David Hogg, moderate guy, asked nicely, is getting tossed. And that's what happens when you trust this party too much or give it too much slack. But we have seen Bernie and AOC hinting at more than just sticking with the Dems. They've been in legacy media endorsing people to run and win by any means, including running as independents against the Democratic Party. That's something that Bernie built his whole life around, coming to power that way. But we need that to be more than just hints and headlines. If they are serious about reorienting this party around labor, people who have to work in the morning, recovering that base, which is what has got to happen, then they've got to make winning by any means a feature of their public presence, not just a footnote of it. I think running independents makes sense in every red state. It makes sense in every state that's trending red. We talk a lot about the results that Dan Osborne put up, but let's hear that nonstop from Bernie and AOC. I think excellent people and candidates are in the wings, ready to step in, but running that way is different than when Bernie did it. It is harder now. There are more entrenched interests, people with money rooting against you when you do that. Any wave of candidates that's going to come up, and we need a wave of them, they're going to need air support. They're going to need real support from people like Bernie and AOC, and they need to be part of a narrative that is coming from their events, that we are out by any means necessary to reorient a major American political party around labor. And that includes running independents against this party. It includes brutal primaries where the party's still alive. And so we've seen a hint from that from Bernie and AOC, and I'm looking for that to really scale up to make me worry less about running into the buzzsaw of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, it's so weird being from Iowa where, like, I have so much hope because of Dan Osborne staging a run in Omaha and Nathan Sage already running. If you listen to that interview that we put out for JJ Nation last week,
Excellent, by the way.
he talked about being labeled a radical and really seeing himself more as a revolutionary because big things need to change. Systems need to change, but it's not extreme to say billionaires shouldn't run the country. It's extreme and radical to say billionaires should run the country and the economy, right? So I agree with rejecting the idea of radical. It's not extreme to say a government by and for the people should actually have representation for the working class. It shouldn't be just 2% of people in Washington that come from the working class. So I get my hope from that. And we haven't had a fighting the oligarchy
The oligarchy.
tour come here. But I certainly don't see Schumer drawing crowds in Utah. So it's possible that we can do as Nathan said we should and tear the Democratic Party down to its studs and rebuild it up, which is a great analogy as the daughter of a builder. But I think, yeah, are AOC and Bernie going to fight against that or support it is the main question now. Are they going to support independent candidates like Nathan? Well, he's a Democrat. He's running as a Democrat, but he certainly does not have the backing of a lot of establishment Democrats that I've talked to. People who are more aligned to the Chuck Schumers and Nancy Pelosi's and moderates of the world. They're not fans. And so it feels like a what side are you on type of moment in American politics, especially on the left.
Never goes out of style. And yeah, I think it's
No.
pretty telling. I think it's pretty telling that the reaction to a thoroughly working class guy with the lived experience of Nathan Sage, people viewing him as radical is pretty telling about what is normal in this world of politics. It's normal to have people from the elite running things, and when they see a guy coming up like that, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is radical!" But we've completely lost our way if working class people running this country is a radical idea. I reject that. And yeah, back to we started talking about Bernie and AOC. I think the real concern there, shepherding all of this movement energy into the Democratic Party, that is definitely something to keep an eye on. But I think we shouldn't let that distract us from the other big concern, which is that it can't just be two people carrying this movement energy. They really need to. We need the political revolution Bernie's been talking about for his whole career, and we need the two people at the head of this movement right now to call up the next generation of those leaders. That's what I'm much more worried about. I think they're capable of doing it, and I want to see it grow into that from this point.
So you would say you think we need a Labor Party, John?
Oh man, do we ever? Speaking of candidates jumping into this race from a labor perspective, I was happy to see just one such candidate enter the race. This is for the Attorney General of Colorado, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but it's David Seligman. You can tell I read it and I didn't hear it. But he's out with a tweet. He's running for Colorado AG. This is an office that has a lot of power over the corporate interest in any given state. They can influence the direction of law in this country. And he is out saying that this campaign's about reclaiming our power from the billionaires who have stolen it from us, from working families. We will fight. We will win because we love this country and the promise that it makes, which is the law belongs to us. You've got people from Bernie World supporting this guy, all good signs. But it's part of the thing I keep returning to in every political discussion, which is we need a Labor Party in this country. Full stop. And I don't care how that happens or what it looks like, whether the Democrats collapse and get replaced, whether independent candidates are running directly against them where the party's dead, whether it's primaries with working class candidates, as long as we reclaim the labor base as the base of the Democratic Party, that is what has to happen. Because another thing I was thinking about, CBS covered this. There's a recent study out that's showing 60% of families basically can't meet their basic needs for a bare bones quality of life in America. 60% of households. Just imagine how many millions of people that is. They are politically homeless right now. But what I keep returning to is that so many people have the shared class interests that is at such a critical point right now that the moment all of those people get on the same page, impossible things will become very achievable in this country. And I think it's important to keep front of mind as things are so bad. But things being so much better is right before us, especially when so many people are struggling to make it. So that's what we need. We need a Labor Party. However it happens, I don't care. But that's what we'll be working for.
Right. My dad, has been a builder. That's been his job for most of his life. And it's so funny talking to him about the world and politics because we get into it. And I am someone who went to trade school for agriculture, right? I didn't think I was going to college. And so I ended up getting on the debate team in high school and doing well because within the FFA, I was public speaking about corporate farming. And I was like,
Let's
well,
go.
maybe instead of studying something like ag related in college, I'll try to study political science so I can go to law school. Because I heard from my friends on the debate team with rich parents that that's what you do, political science and then law. Fast forward to me being in political science classes and learning about concepts such as the consent of the governed and philosophical ideals about who makes the laws, why they make the laws, the fact that if the government is doing a poor job, people tend to revolt, and we've seen this throughout history. And now, like, people like my father are talking about these very abstract principles that are typically reserved for political science classrooms. Do you know how pissed off you have to make the working class so they learn
To get
political science theory? We are
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a
actually,
rough shape right now.
that is a recession indicator of the to the most intense degree.
Crazy. But
And
yeah.
I think that's got to be the test. We're talking about a Labor Party here, and it's just the test should be, what are you going to do? If you're wanting people to vote for you, to be taken seriously as a candidate, what are you going to do to roll back the power of billionaires right now? Not just to look good or to sound good or to be better than Trump. I mean, that bar is in hell. But what are you going to do to solve the root cause of the problem of why 60% of these households are not meeting their basic needs? What are you going to do to roll back billionaire power and return that to the working people who are out here learning political science out of necessity? Um, I think that's the question that we have to hold up, especially to candidates on the Democratic side, because if the billionaires are not worried about you, if they don't spend time thinking about how to quash your movement, if you're just kind of a laughing stock to the billionaires, then what are you even doing? What is the point of your party? And I can tell you, as a person that in a red state, West Virginia has very interesting politics. Not so long ago, it was governed by Democrats for 80 years, but now it is the second most red state in the country. I can tell you here, which is why I've been advocating for independent labor candidates to run, the coal interests of this state, the billionaires of this state, they don't lose any sleep about what the state Democratic Party is doing. And that is the case for so much of the Democratic Party across the country. So we'll know that we're making real progress when the candidates that we choose to run, whether they're in the party or out of the party, are causing billionaires and corporate interests to lose sleep. I think that should be the standard.
Yeah. And I don't know. People are afraid. Like, they're afraid to challenge billionaires because they get their money and their political career is funded by billionaires. I would like to speak directly to everyone in my comment section lately bullying me into running for office. It's not going to happen. I have no interest in running. I'm pretty comfortable in my position. But for anyone running for public office or currently in political power, to you, I would say, and to all those people in my comment section, tax the rich, but militantly. File RICO charges because
Yeah.
these motherfuckers are paying the working class so much less than their labor is worth. They have manipulated our laws so that they can accumulate and hoard wealth, and people are literally dying as a result of the richest people in our country hoarding resources. Like, criminalize their behavior. It's not that complicated. And if you think about it for a second, when you're coming up with a plan of what to do with these billionaires, discipline like them like they discipline the poor. Someone who is poor, who is in the street smoking weed, and the police see them and they're a person of color or they're in disheveled clothes or something, they're getting thrown in prison. Then they're spending their life doing contracted labor for less than $1 an hour in a lot of cases, and that's their life in America. That makes no fucking sense. Why do we not treat the people that actually create the conditions that produce poverty as the real criminals that they are? And I'm not sure why we don't see more candidates running on that, because I think it could actually be quite popular.
It's another great standard. I mean, we need an equal and opposite reaction to the Trump regime right now. And I think so much of my takes, so many of my takes, they boil down to not having that, from the opposition party. I think, and I'm speaking to, Democratic primary voters here too. We need somebody who's not just going to be nice to look at and be nice to listen to, that can string a sentence together. We need an equal and opposite reaction to Donald Trump. And what are they doing? I mean, they're kicking millions of people off of Medicaid. They are absolutely gutting the federal workforce. They're waging war on everything that stands between bloodless corporations polluting your water and you drinking the water. For every assault like that they make on our public services and our ability to control our lives, we need an opposition movement that is meeting that and exceeding that in the opposite direction of turning power back to people. So that's what I'm hoping materializes. And it's like, man, such a great point about white collar crime going unpunished. Like you can go like take a piss in the wrong place and get a charge for this. But if you like dump 500,000 gallons of toxic shit in a river, it's like a news story. And that's insane. That's insane. You can murder one person and go down for that, or you can murder 200,000 people, in the Middle East, and then it's just written about. We need a complete reversal of how things are run.
Yeah, not for nothing. This is why Luigi Mangione is popular, is because the guy that he allegedly is accused of
Yeah.
killing is someone who is in the position of potentially, maybe you'd call it white collar crime. We call things white collar crime if they're disconnected from the person that they impact or indirectly kill. But like, if you're in a company that is polluting the river and a bunch of people get cancer and die, why is that not considered a violent crime? The idea that white collar crime is uniquely not violent because it's done from like boardrooms is ridiculous. It's more violent. A lot of people that are labeled violent criminals like hurt one person or are accused of hurting one person, whereas these super rich guys are responsible for the deaths and suffering of millions. And so I think that's why when we hear someone like this guy running for AG in Colorado, Skilliger, whatever's David Skilliger.
Call into the show and tell us your name.
Please. But saying that the law should be for the people, I think resonates so much right now, specifically for that reason, that we're seeing they don't match up the destruction being caused.